Your game is never gonna be finished if you keep rebuilding it every time it starts to work. At the beginning, everything feels like progress, and that's exactly why most games never leave that phase. You open a project and get something moving. Maybe within a few hours, you already have something that looks really cool, like a game, a car that drives, it's a camera, or some really cool lighting or cinematics. And that early momentum tricks you, because nothing is locked in yet. Every decision that you can make is still open, and you can change anything at any point in time, and it feels like freedom and control. But what you're actually doing is delaying your commitment to your game. You're not really building a game yet. You're in a state where everything could and can become a game. And with my game Trishu-Drift, I didn't just get stuck once. I got stuck in this exact loop. I rebuilt the drifting system after already having one that worked. I changed the way a car handled because I saw a better approach. I reworked the visuals so many times after spending weeks on them just because it didn't match the new idea in my head. And every time it felt like the right move, because a new version is always better. And that's a problem. You don't notice that until you stopped progressing, because every restart just becomes an upgrade to you. So it feels justified, like you're getting closer to a finished version, but in reality, you're not actually moving your game forward. You're just resetting and upgrading the same section over and over and over again with slightly better tools. And at some point, you have to ask yourself a question. How many times can you rebuild the same system before you admit you're avoiding to finish it? And maybe think of your project as a conveyor belt in a factory. You place some things onto it. It could be a mechanic, a level, a system, and each one is supposed to move forward until it becomes part of the finished game. And now imagine you're stepping in, pulling things off and replacing them halfway through. And that's the point where every time you do so, you're improving something that already worked. The belt is running, but nothing stays on it long enough to reach the end of the finished game. So from the outside, it looks like you've been working on your game for months or even years, but in reality, you've been working on the same 20% of your game the entire time. And there's another layer that's really hard to notice, because that's not the only one. You're constantly being shown better versions of what you're building, better shaders, better physics, better systems, better workflows, and every time you see something like this, it quietly tells your brain that the current version isn't good enough yet, so you go back and change it. With Trishu-Drift, I kept doing this with the car handling and visuals again and again and again. Since drifting and cars is a really common hobby, I would see something sharper, more realistic, more polished, and immediately felt like I had to catch up. But the game didn't need to catch up. It just needed to move forward, because if your direction keeps changing based on what you see, you don't have a direction anymore. You just react to everything that comes your way. And that's the core issue here. You never defined what done actually meant in the context of your game, so everything stays open. Every system is allowed to be revisited, every feature is allowed to be replaced, and every decision you make is temporary. And at some point with Trishu-Drift, I had to force a definition. The drift system is done when the car can initiate, hold, and exit a drift on one track without breaking anything. And that's it. It's not perfect, it's not realistic, and it's not final forever, but it's done. And that is the point where once that line existed, I had something I could actually reach and feel accomplished. This is where things start to change, and this is also where most people stop following through with their actions. It's a structure that limits you. It shouldn't motivate you, it limits you. Pick a short sprint, 1 week is enough, and at the start of that week, choose 2 or 3 different things that actually matter. Define them clearly and, importantly, in simple steps, what has to be true for each of those things to count as finished. And during that week, you only work on those things. And when that part is done, you want to break your own rule. And you will want a better idea halfway through. You will notice something else that feels more important. And that's the exact moment where your project will fall apart. That's where you decide whether finishing something or restarting something is more important. That's the very specific moment that kills your progress. You're sitting there, looking at what you built, and start imagining how it could be better. And instead of finishing what's in front of you, you mentally jump into a different version of the game, a cleaner version, a more advanced version, a version that could be more impressive to others, and you start working to that version instead. What finally then made me move things forward was really simple, but uncomfortable. I started locking things in. If a system works, it stays. And if a feature meets its definition, it's done, even if I knew exactly how to improve it. That's the part that feels wrong at first, because you're leaving quality on the table, but what you're actually doing is progressing. So you're trading in some small improvements for a lot of forward momentum. And without that trade, nothing you do really matters. And once you strip this down to the basics, it's very simple. You work in short sprints, pick a few tasks that matter, define what finishing means, and finish that without switching. And then you move on. I think most people don't stick to it because the difficulty isn't to understand it, the difficulty is not breaking it when you want to. At some point, you have to decide what kind of developer you are. Either one that keeps chasing a better version of the same game, or the one that actually finishes it. Because if you keep reopening every decision, your game doesn't evolve at all. It just resets from a different point. And if it keeps resetting, it never arrives anywhere. If you want to see how this looks in action, you can check out Trishu-Drift on Steam. A wishlist would greatly help. And if you're working on your own game, subscribe and tell me in the comments what kind of problem you are currently working on and what your definition of done for that is. And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next one.